Good afternoon. This Township of Selwyn regular council meeting of October the 8th, 2024 will come to order. We respectfully acknowledge we offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Please observe a moment of silence so that council, staff, and members of the public can quietly reflect on the community we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded. And we have the minutes of September the 24th and September the 26th, 2024 in front of us. Are there any errors or omissions? Can I have someone move them, please? Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Boyko. All in favor? That is carried. Is there any discussion out of the minutes? Seeing none, we will now go to our first deputation. We have Sarah here from MPAC. Good afternoon, Sarah.
Good afternoon. We're good. We're on. Okay.
I love technology.
Perfect. Thank you. So good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Sarah Groves, and I'm an account manager with the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. And I cover and am responsible for supporting the relationships with all of the municipalities in the County of Peterborough, County of Haliburton, City of Peterborough, and City of Kawartha Lakes. And with me today is also Victoria, who's my account support coordinator, who helps with all of those relationships and the municipalities within. So today, essentially, I want you to come away from this presentation with a greater understanding of what MPAC does and the relationship between municipalities, property owners, and MPAC in the property assessment and taxation system. Next slide, please. So there are 4 key players in Ontario's property assessment and taxation system, and all have a different role and interest in the process. The provincial government is responsible for setting assessment and taxation legislation, as well as policies. And MPAC's main role is to determine the current value assessment and classification for all properties in Ontario. And we provide an annual assessment role to each municipality. Municipalities determine their budget requirements and set tax rates in order to collect property taxes that in turn pay for municipal services. Municipalities apply the tax rate to MPAC's assessment, and the assessment times the tax rate essentially equals the amount of taxes for each property. And the ratepayer or the property owner pays the property tax. And the important role that property owners play is that of seller or purchaser of properties. Those transactions then inform MPAC's current value assessments. Next slide, please. So monitoring the market and assessing newly built and renovated properties are things we do every day in order to keep our data current. We also periodically update every single property in Ontario based on the same legislated valuation date. And we call this an assessment update or a reassessment. This is when we determine what every single property in Ontario could have reasonably sold for in its current state and condition at a particular point in time. Provincial legislation determines when MPAC can conduct a province-wide assessment update and sets the valuation date for each update cycle. We can all agree that the market has changed a lot in the recent years, and the key is that once we are provided with direction on the new valuation date and valuation cycle, all properties will be valued as of that point of time and date. And the date and sales, the date, pardon, and the sales in and around that date are what will inform those assessed values. Next slide, please. So Ontario's property tax system is based on everyone paying their portion of what it costs to deliver community services. And to do this, all properties are assigned a value at a common valuation date. Current value assessment is the market value as a point in time. It's the price a property might reasonably be expected to sell for if sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer after appropriate time and exposure on an open market. Regular revaluation of properties ensures that assessments stay up to date and similar properties of similar value in the same municipality pay similar property taxes. Next slide, please. So as you can imagine, maintaining the property database is very important. We update property data on a continuous basis. There are things like responding to property owner inquiries. We work with municipalities. We had a meeting this morning with the finance and the clerk's department to ensure we're up to date. We're sharing information back and forth, and we work collaboratively to ensure that relationship stays strong. Next slide, please. So a quick synopsis of the three approaches when we value properties. The first one is the direct comparison approach, and this is primarily used for residential properties and condos and vacant land. And essentially, this approach analyzes sales of comparable properties that were sold for a similar or identical use as the property to be valued. We also have the income approach used for properties like office buildings, and we have the cost approach for properties like mini warehousing and general purpose industrial. So no matter what the valuation approach is that is used, the selection of comparable sale transactions serves as the foundation for establishing those property assessments. Next slide, please. So because you guys are primarily made up of residential, I thought we'd take a look at the 5 major factors that influence the assessment on a residential property, and they're listed here. So we have the age of buildings, we have lot location, lot dimension, the exterior square footage, the quality of construction. There are over 200 other factors, like different site variables, for instance, that also come into play, but these are the 5 main contributing factors to determining the residential assessment value. Next slide, please. So after we've determined a value and we maybe issue a notice to the property owner, at any time they can take a look at that notice that they've been issued and go on about my property listed here in the second box, or we call it more commonly AMP. On AMP is a various amount of resources. So it contains all of the property detailed information for the subject property. They can look at comparable properties across the municipality. They can save favorites. They can look at fine details of neighboring properties as well, to a certain limitation. And what we really want property owners to do is go in and confirm the information we have. Make sure the details are correct, make sure the square footage makes sense, the number of structures on your property, that kind of information. We want to ensure it's equitable. So we just want to make sure the information is correct. Now, if for some reason the information is incorrect or they disagree with the assessed value that's been tied to their property, they can submit a request for reconsideration, and we'll review their property and all of the property details free of charge. And again, we just want to make sure the information is correct. So right through About My Property, they can look at all of these detailed information and they can file that request for reconsideration directly through that platform. So I always suggest property owners taking a look at their information to understand what's going on first. Okay. Next slide, please. So once we've done that, let's talk about the relationship between property tax and assessment. So first off, assessment distributes taxes. It does not determine the taxes paid. The most important factor is not how much the assessed value of a property has changed, but rather how the assessed value has changed relative to the average change in the class within that community. Oh, next slide, please. So the next few slides are going to go over some resources that we have not only for yourselves, for property owners, for your neighbors, for anybody that's interested in kind of learning a little bit more. So we're always focusing on building awareness about what MPAC does and our role in the property assessment and taxation process. And we understand that it can be complex. So there are a lot of resources available. So first thing up here is the First Time Homeowners Hub, for instance. That is exactly what it kind of states. The Homeowners Hub is developed for first-time property owners that maybe have never had any engagement with MPAC before, doesn't know why they're getting maybe a notice. So that information is on the hub. We also have door hangers and letters that we issue to property owners, whether we've been out for an inspection or we intend to go out for an inspection, we do reach out. We have social media campaigns and educational videos as well. Next slide, please. So at the end of February, we launched a new Insights campaign. And this Insights campaign you may have seen in some of our social media posts. The campaign focuses on how the residential property landscape has evolved in the last decade, and specifically the housing inventory. So what we've learned is that year over year, price increases are driving buyers to look at communities further outside the Greater Toronto Horseshoe area. So communities with homes under $500,000 are becoming increasingly scarce, and the type and location of homes with a value of less than $750,000 has also shifted. So what does this mean really? So that means that there's limited options for maybe first-time home buyers. In 2013, 74% of residential properties in Ontario had a home value estimate of less than $500,000, while 91% had a value of less than $750,000. So today, that number has dropped to just 19% and 48% respectively. Reasons for the drop in homes available under that $500,000 value, we know what kind of the influences are. So economic forces like inflation, supply and demand, increased construction and labor costs, and all of that really drives the prices that we're seeing today. To find properties for less than $500,000, potential buyers can look to cities like Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, North Bay, Thunder Bay, and Windsor, while homes under $750,000 can be found closer to us, like in Peterborough. Next slide, please. So I did have a slide specific to the property, the First Time Homeowners Hub, just to really showcase that last year we issued 713,000 property assessment notices last year to property owners. So I don't have an exact percentage, but a huge chunk of those would be first-time homeowners buying in new places. So for many of those property owners, that would be the first time that they've had any exposure or engagement with MPAC, and it would have been through that property assessment notice. So on the First-Time Homeowners Hub, they can see what that property assessment is and what it isn't. The relationship between property assessment and taxation. It shows what their current value is, how we use sales to determine the value of a residential home. We talk about the building permit process, what to expect during their first inspection or what they can expect once an assessor comes to their home. And it even talks about school support on there as well. So next slide, please. So this you may be familiar with. This was the Myths and Facts campaign that was out last year. And it's literally a Coles Notes explanation and really simple myths and facts about what things are or what they aren't. So I've showcased them here. They are available on the mpac.ca website. So any of these resources are available to municipal staff, and there are toolkits specifically designed for council as well. If there's any of these social media posts or pre-canned images or anything like that that you would like to use. So I think on the next slide is the video. And I would like to take the time to watch this. It's a great video on the relationship between property assessment and taxation and how they are related.
Property taxes are based on your home's value. What you might not know is that an increase in your home's value doesn't necessarily mean your taxes will go up. To explain, let's take a look at how your property taxes are calculated. Imagine there's a town that only has 3 homes, and they're each worth a different amount. The total cost to provide all of the town's services is $1,200. This is collected through property taxes. Each homeowner pays property taxes based on their home's assessed value. So we take the total cost of services and divide it by the total property value. This tax rate is applied to all the houses to get enough money to pay for the town's services. Each homeowner pays according to the assessed value of their home, and every 4 years, the houses are reassessed. Let's say all 3 properties have gone up equally in value. The total cost of services hasn't changed, but the total property value has increased. When this happens, there will be a decrease in the tax rate. Now, when we apply that new rate on all the homes, everyone still pays the same. Now, let's say another 4 years has gone by, and these homes are reassessed. During this time, the house on the right gains more market value than the other 2. The total value of all the homes have increased, which means the town has to calculate a new tax rate. With this new tax rate, the first 2 homes will actually pay less than the home on the right that was reassessed at a higher value. Since the cost of services hasn't changed, the town doesn't need to collect more property taxes on the whole. However, since property taxes are based on a home's value, taxes for each individual home could potentially go up or down based on the rest of the homes. So, what happens when the cost to provide services goes up? Well, it means more property taxes need to be collected from every home, and a new tax rate is calculated. To get the new rate, we take that amount that the town now needs and divide it by all of the property values. The new rate is applied to all the homes, and now everyone has to pay the new tax amount to continue to fund the town's services. So, let's review. 1. Property taxes are based on the assessed value of a home. If all assessments go up equally, everyone pays the same. 2. If all assessments do not go up equally, there's a redistribution of the tax. 3. If the town's cost to provide services increases, the municipality may choose to increase the tax rate. When this happens, everyone pays their share of that increase. And that explains the relationship between property value and property taxes.
If you're thinking about buying or selling a house anywhere within about an hour of Peterborough or Kawartha Lakes,
Perfect. While she's getting that back up. So I know I briefly mentioned about my property. About my property is really the key touch point for property owners to go into. So as I mentioned, they can view all of their property information on there. They can look at sales information, site information, structure details, locational influences, like some of those site factor and variables that I mentioned before. All property notices are on there back to 2012, unless there's been an ownership change. They're able to see all of those. You can confirm and update your school support directly through About My Property. There's a link for property owners, and then there's a link for tenants as well. I think I've got a slide on that coming up. Brand new, you can also update your mailing address on About My Property for property owners. Not everybody understands that that's a good place to get information updated to ensure that you get your notice when you need it, kind of thing. All of the methodology guides, the market valuation reports, local market adjustment reports, if they're available, are all on aboutmyproperty.ca. And every property owner across the province has access to theirs. If for some reason they don't have their access key, they can reach our customer contact center and they'd be happy to get that set up for them. So again, it's got all kinds of information in it and a great resource for property owners. Next slide, please. So the next slide is on the school support portal. So in Q1 of 2023, we designed an online school support portal for property owners and tenants to go online and update their school support information. Pictured on the right is the paper copy of the application to direct school support form. We do accept the paper copies, but there is a large shift to the online. So it's available for anybody to access either online or via the paper option. Next slide, please. So we liaise with municipalities on a regular basis. I mentioned that we had a meeting this morning with some of the finance and the clerk's department staff. We meet regularly. We also attend conferences. We have one-on-one meetings with council as you wish. If you've got a topic that you'd like to chat about. We host webinars. We have regular training videos for municipal staff as well. And we meet with our municipal partners in order to build those crucial relationships and understand the communities that we actually work in. We work closely with municipal administration and councils to provide information like this to educate and share all of that valuable knowledge. Just a number to throw out, in 2023, we did 1,800 municipal engagements, and we're probably past that at this point in 2024 as well. And we managed over 18,000 municipal inquiries last year. So that could have been on things like property specific questions where the finance clerk maybe had a question about a property, or we needed to review some of the structures that were on the property. All of those types of things, mailing addresses, severances, all of that triggers those municipal inquiries that we action. And important is also the municipal partnership report, the performance report, and the annual report, which in the coming months you'll see for 2024. Right now, the 2023 reports are available on our MPAC.ca website, and I highly suggest you take a look and familiarize yourself with some of the information in there and reach out if you have any questions. And I think the last page is just my contact information. Listed on there as well is my regional manager, Lynn Cunningham, should you wish to reach out to her. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. The last time that we had reassessments done, I believe is 8 years ago. Do you have any idea when it's going to be done again?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yes, right now our current valuation date is January 1st, 2016. And the last update was supposed to occur in 2020, and that was paused by the provincial government. Right now, we're awaiting the final results and formal review of the property assessment and taxation system review that was announced earlier. So we are awaiting that and would anticipate possibly a date after that. But at this time, we don't have an indication of what that new valuation date or cycle will be.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from members of council? Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sanis. Thanks for coming to talk to us. I do have one question, and that's with the income approach to calculating the assessed values. If it's a community that has registration for Airbnbs, is that something that MPAC would access and look at and consider as well?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Currently, short-term accommodations, short-term rentals are not legislated to be a commercial property. Until such time that there's a legislative change, they are recognized as residential properties.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Black.
Through you, Mayor Sanis. Thanks for the presentation, Sarah. It's always good to remind people how the system works because we do get a lot of questions around assessment and how it affects their taxes. One of the questions that I often get was around comparables that the MPAC uses. So the AMP system, when you go in on your property, does it show you what comparables were used to do your assessed value, or is it just more of a general formula for the area? How does that work? How can people get information about what home they've been compared to?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. When you log into About My Property, you can look at up to 100 properties. So you can pick and choose which ones you want to look at. There's also 24 that you can save as favorites, where you can look at the actual property details, exact same level of detail as your property. And usually you know what is comparable to your property. So we leave that open for the property owners to decide what they can determine is comparable. And some will pre-populate as well, just determining what's been used.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'm looking for someone to receive the presentation. Deputy Mayor Black and Councillor Henry, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now have, is it Gabby Kalapos? Who is going to be with Clean Air Partnership that's going to be giving us an update on the home energy assessment study. And is she online?
Yes, I am online. Can you hear me okay?
You can.
Okay, perfect. I will just share my screen and just bear with me as it takes that on. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, staff, and community residents. I'm really glad to have some time on the council meeting, and I appreciate the time allocation on the council meeting to talk about Better Homes Selwyn and the market assessment and that has taken place to better understand the residential energy efficiency retrofit market in Selwyn Township. My name is Gabriella Kalapush. I'm the executive director of the Clean Air Partnership, and we're a charitable environmental organization, and our main modus operandi is to work with municipalities to support the implementation of their climate action plans, and really supporting the kind of retrofit opportunity is one of the key critical areas that many municipalities, I can't think of a climate action plan that doesn't have a retrofit program as a kind of core action that's needed in order to achieve the GHG greenhouse gas reduction targets that many municipalities have set. However, I will also raise that one of the most important aspects that many municipalities look at when they're advancing their retrofit or exploring why they or if they should advance a retrofit program is the economic development potential as well as the job creation potential. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely. Energy efficiency retrofit opportunities are critical to achieving greenhouse gas and climate change targets that municipalities have set for them. However, one of the other kind of really, and I would call kind of the climate benefits and the GHG reductions a co-benefit, because many municipalities are interested in advancing these programs largely because they recognize the economic development potential. And one of the reasons for that is because most of the money that we all spend on energy doesn't stay within our local communities. It often leaves our communities. Some of the electricity expenditures that we have stays within the province of Ontario, but a lot of the fossil fuel expenditures that we make leave our province and certainly leave our local communities. Municipalities have recognized that there's enormous job creation and economic development opportunities associated with retrofit programs. That's because these jobs and advancing these retrofits is often labor intensive, and they provide a range of different jobs. So some kind of earlier kind of people in the kind of, lower skill sets that can be brought into the market to build their kind of capacity over time, while also providing really good quality jobs in terms of engineering and energy advisors as well. These jobs have to be delivered locally. They can't be outsourced, and a lot of the materials that need to be bought require local purchases of these materials rather than bringing them in from elsewhere. So that's one of the key motivations associated for why municipalities are exploring retrofit programs and delivering retrofits within their programs. I thought it was also important to really highlight the benefit, like what is a low carbon and net zero carbon emissions home look like? One of the key critical aspects that needs to be advanced is improvements to the building envelope, especially for older buildings. And we'll get into a little bit of the archetypes that's in Selwyn Township. In addition, it's actually transferring over fossil fuel use for building heating and hot water heating over to electrification. There's also renewable opportunities. There's also terms of appliances, Energy Star appliances, improvements on doors and HVAC systems, and moving from fossil fuels, whether it be oil, propane, natural gas, towards electrification. So I wanted to give you a little quick tour, and I will provide this presentation, and there's also a report that's available as well to dig a little bit more into the details of the different archetypes that are within Selwyn Township. One of the archetypes that has the biggest energy costs, as well as the biggest opportunity for retrofits and cost savings associated with those retrofits, is the pre-1996. This is all homes like that, kind of either single family or they would all be single or double floors. They would be really kind of highlighting some of the kind of critical pieces in terms of energy costs. We've estimated that's about $4,400 a year, with about $2,700 coming in from fossil fuel use. This is just but one of the archetypes. Another one that's a very common archetype in Selwyn Township is related to the 1946, 1977, but it's a one-story. They are also likely to be natural gas, electricity, and propane and oil are still significant potentials, the 19% and 7% for propane and oil. And when we get to the kind of summary of the different archetypes, you'll see the important aspects of moving people away from propane and oil towards electrification is one of the greatest opportunities that presents for those oil and propane homes. In addition, the 1946 to 77 two-story, not a huge amount of the big archetypes, but still 341 homes within Selwyn Township associated with it. Then another common archetype is the one-story, but from 1978 to 1995. These are just estimated costs when you can see the difference between whether they're natural gas heated, electrically heated, or propane and oil heated as well. But there's opportunities in this archetype as well. This is a small percentage of Selwyn homes, but the two-story does have kind of additional higher energy costs just because of the square footage associated with heating these homes. There is still a small amount in terms of oil on this kind of archetype, but less so than the previous archetype. The 1996 to present represents the kind of smallest energy efficiency potential in Selwyn Township, largely because it's a smaller kind of building footprint and doesn't use as much energy. In particular, it's also because it's largely going to be likely to be natural gas. However, there is a significant potential that are propane heated that does present an energy and economic opportunity for retrofits. And then the 1996 to present with the larger size, higher energy costs because of the bigger footprint. However, not the biggest energy user on a kind of per square footage, just because largely there's more insulation in these older homes, or these newer homes, I should mention, to heat these up. But it does present an opportunity for these archetypes, maybe not so much for the building envelope as much, but certainly from the electrification kind of replacing HVAC fossil fuel systems with our air conditioners with heat pumps to reduce the energy costs as well as the greenhouse gas emissions. The summary of all of these different archetypes are all provided here, and I will be sharing the slides as well, just in case that hasn't gotten to you yet. I'll kind of share that with clerk so that it can make its way to you as well. But it really kind of highlights, when we talk about the market potential, what we're talking about is the economic return on investment. How close are we to achieving a free retrofit for these types of buildings? And when I put free, I'm putting it in quotes, because what it means is that what we're trying to do is provide financing to customers up front so that their energy savings over time can pay back the loan. And then as such, once they finish paying that loan, the energy savings are accrued to them alone. And there's no longer any kind of financial liability associated with the loan that was provided to these homes to undertake the retrofit. Really kind of highlights those older buildings have a huge market potential, in particular because of the poor building envelope that they tend to experience, as well as because they tend to be higher on the oil and propane use as well. In terms of the newer homes, they're a cooler market in terms of the benefits, in terms of the return on investment from the building envelope improvements, but still present significant opportunities for switching out HVAC or air conditioners, fossil fuel furnaces, to air conditioners to heat pumps. That's one of the things I wanted to address as part of this. I did want to highlight, I know a lot of people get very scared when they're thinking about moving to electricity for building heating, but that's often because they're thinking of baseboard heating and the inefficient use of baseboard heating to heat people's homes. We are not advocating for baseboard heating. We really are moving on to the heat pump opportunity and the opportunity that those heat pumps play in removing fossil fuels from building heating and doing so in a very cost-effective way. It is a no-brainer for those on oil and propane to help kind of bring in the air source heat pump or geothermal if they decide, if they have a fair amount of land that they'd like to advance. But I did want to highlight the misconception that we're not advocating for electricity heating via baseboard heaters. And this is really a switch out from furnaces and air conditioners towards heat pumps for electrification of heating. So you might be considering with, retrofit programs that have taken place, what would a Better Home Selwyn program actually be able to address? What gaps in market is it able to address? First off, financing, huge gap in the market. There is the CMHC financing that's available of a 10-year zero interest loan. One of the things that Better Home programs that are in market are kind of offering are much longer term. They're up to 20 years loans, repayments to achieve that free retrofit in the sense that energy savings can pay back the loan. That's one of the key factors, but the upfront capital cost is a barrier for a significant part of the population. Customer supports is really critical, and community programs can help address those gaps. It's very hard for giving customer service to these big kind of province-wide Enbridge kind of HERS programs or greener homes or programs to provide that hand-holding to the customer to navigate what is often a very complex retrofit process. So that's another gap that that community programs are addressing. Also, building a lot of engagement with the contractor community and advancing training and job creation is another thing that a community program can address that larger programs often struggle to deliver. And then really the realtor engagement and help the local partnerships promotion and engagement to build that kind of critical mass of people moving forward on retrofits is another area where community programs can address those gaps better than often kind of provincial and national programs can. So what are other municipalities doing? Certainly there's other municipalities advancing these retrofit programs. Better Homes Toronto, Ottawa, Durham Region, Kingston, Guelph, and Burlington are all advancing programs. Many other jurisdictions are also working on their programs. This includes Huntsville, Dufferin County, London, Ontario, Peterborough, City of Peterborough, and a number of other municipalities are moving forward with this as well. Some of the key gaps that they're really trying to address is incentives geared towards equity outcomes, really trying to address the upfront capital cost and helping with bridge financing for people who don't have the cash flow to be able to undertake these programs and wait for incentives and loans from CMHC, which often take a couple of months to come to the homeowners. And in particular, the energy concierge support is the really, really critical piece that many of these programs are trying to fill. So why would Selwyn Township advance a retrofit program? What would it look like after 4 years of a retrofit program? Really what it means is that there's a lot more engagement within the community itself on energy efficiency retrofits and the value proposition. Really working with local partners to increase capacity, program uptake is something that a Better Homes Selwyn program can address, that larger programs will have a harder time to reaching into the community. Working with the third-party delivery, like we're working with many municipalities to help kind of deliver these programs in a more efficient way, reducing the admin burden on municipalities is another offering that's available to Selwyn Township as well. And in particular, one of the key goals is the economic development opportunity, the job creation that this results in. And in particular, one of the most important goals is helping to reduce people's high energy cost burdens associated with their heating of their homes. So next steps, really what's coming next after we've done the market analysis, really trying to kind of dig into the FCM grant and loan offering. Is that something that Selwyn Township would be particularly interested in applying for? CAP will be working with council and working with staff to kind of help kind of identify what are the opportunities, what's the readiness within Selwyn Township in terms of meeting the FCM requirements in order to apply for a capital and grants program to try and get a program in market within Selwyn Township. And then staff will be reporting back on the council considerations for the 2025 capital budget meeting. So I'd love to answer any questions you have, and I apologize for going through this really quickly. I tried to stick and I failed within the 10 minutes. I apologize.
No, thank you very much for this, Gabby. We have the opportunity to ask questions of Gabby, but we also have a presentation from Paris Carr, who is going to be talking about what could happen in Selwyn. And I just wanted to mention that Selwyn has been a leader in many ways over the years for many things. And this is another opportunity for us to lead the way in the county and in the province to look at doing something like this to help homeowners that are right now paying a lot of money for their home heating and in a more sustainable way with what's being offered. So I don't know if you have any questions for Gabby, or should we just carry on having Paris give her presentation? We okay with that? Are you going to stay on, Gabby, while Paris gives her?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, just in case we have some questions as a result. So now we'll turn to Paris. Welcome. Your first presentation to council.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I just want to say that my report was kind of just like a supplement to all of the information that Gabby has given us. So Gabby is better at answering these questions than I would be. And I want to say thanks so much to her for giving all of that information on the study. So I will maybe just say my piece and then maybe we can turn back to Gabby for some
Absolutely.
questions. Okay, thank you. So knowing that council has my report, I just wanted to reinforce that the presentation and my report today regarding the home energy loan feasibility study update be received for your information and for your feedback, and that a home retrofit program be considered as part of the 2025 budget as we move forward, and hoping that we can work together on this. And that's all for me.
Okay, so you don't want to provide, other than what you've given us in the report, any additional information? Perhaps we can hear a little bit about the financial impact, which I don't believe Gabby can answer. I don't know whether you want to speak to it or maybe Lane.
I don't mind trying to weigh in a
Okay,
little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we didn't really want to get into the financing component at this point. Really, at this point, FCM grant provided funding for the study. So Gabby's here, provided the results of that study. And there is an opportunity through FCM to actually put into action a program if council wishes us to move forward with that. We would kind of like council to tell us, are you interested in us working with Gabby and the Clean Air Partnership to kind of flesh out what a potential program could look like for Selwyn? We would then bring back some information as part of the 2025 capital budget that would give better detail on what that financing piece could look like. There's a lot of different components that could be considered, but really we don't want to do a lot of that work if council's really not interested in even considering that type of program.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification. And I'm open to questions. First of all, Councillor Boyko.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sanis. I'm very interested in this program and will be voting to support the recommendation that a home retrofit program be supported. I think it is absolutely essential that we look at ways that we can help all of the residences and the businesses to reduce their carbon and possibly save some money. Back to Gabby. Gabby, I can see back on the screen again. One part that interests me and I'd like to know a little bit more about is the word concierge. I think is interesting. I think about going into a hotel. So how exactly would that work? I think I understand that you're basically dealing with people who want to learn more about it and how can I access it? But perhaps you can say, what would it actually look like on the ground?
So what it would look like, and same way you kind of, when you go to the concierge, if you're looking for a type of restaurant to go to and you don't necessarily know the place, and you would ask them, do you have any recommendations for a good Italian restaurant? And then they give you those kind of guidance because they have the local knowledge that you may not be privy to. So the same thing works for energy concierges. There are programs in market. There is some financing available from CMHC. There's some HERS incentives that are available. We do know that there's a new Greener Homes that's going to be launched at some point in time that's income qualified. But what that concierge does is it really helps the homeowner navigate for their type of home and what they want to do. What are the types of incentives that are available? How might they want to reach out to contractors? What's the kind of general processes associated with it? Trying to get 3 quotes. How would you find kind of contractors who can help you with your heat pump installation? What's the kind of certifications or training programs that you might want to check into? What's the right questions to be asking your contractors to better understand if they understand the building science, to make sure that with regards to insulation that it's being done properly? What's the kind of price ranges that work for these retrofits? What would a kind of air source heat pump cost for this sense? How would that compare to a geothermal, a geo bore field or a kind of geofield in terms of comparison on operational costs? really helping to kind of navigate and help homeowners figure out what are the right questions to ask if they don't yet know what the right questions to ask are. And if they have questions, just answering the questions to the best extent possible to help the homeowners navigate this. Because one of the things that's a bit of an issue for many times is that these retrofits involve numerous different contractors. They get sequenced at different times in terms of which ones should be done first, in terms of building envelope improvements first before you're doing mechanical systems. But then the kind of pros and cons if you aren't able to advance. Let's just say your furnace breaks down and you're looking to try and advance a new option. How do you kind of address that HVAC change that you need to get right away and then figure out your building envelope work in the longer term? So it really is just helping the homeowner, one, figure out what questions to ask if they don't yet know, or answering the questions if they already know what their questions are.
Follow up?
If I could follow up. So I understand the information that would be given to homeowners wishing to at least learn more about the program. But am I right then that it would be a staff person that would be in charge of a communication program that would be social media? It would be part of our communicator, or it would be public meetings, and it would be meetings with individuals in their homes. It would be all of this. But
it would often not be individual meetings with the homes. It would often be done through the website, as much as that information could provide to homeowners on the website. However, if they're not finding the answers on the website, then they have a number that they can call to talk to a person. It would largely be based on a conversation online, like very similar to kind of a Zoom meeting or a phone call with people, to help them answer the questions they have, so that they have real direct contact with a person who can help them. It can either be done by a staff person who's inside the municipality to do this, but many municipalities are wanting to advance these programs through a third-party delivery to achieve some kind of efficiency of scale. Does every program need its own website? Does every program need its own client management system? So there's opportunities to kind of partner. What the Clean Air Partnership is doing is trying to offer a third-party delivery service for these retrofit programs if municipalities do not want to deliver these programs in-house through municipal staff people as well. Or it could be some combination of the two, depending on what, like the Ottawa program, there's both the city staff who are involved in the implementation and supports, and they also have an energy concierge through Enviro Center who does a lot of that kind of building science and helping homeowners navigate the retrofit program.
that's the clarification I needed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. Thanks for the presentation, Gabby. I think it's an important step forward for the township to look at the FCM home energy program, and certainly supportive of that. Interesting with the statistics you presented on the different types of homes, that the homes built from 96 to today actually have more fossil fuel use than even the previous. Oil is disappearing, but more propane, and so that's disappointing, obviously, that's happened, but I think there's a lot of factors there. The good news is all those homes are going to need new systems. If you had to put your system in the mid-90s, you're just about ready for something new. So timing perspective for that particular group, I think, is a positive thing as far as gaining some momentum in the program. One of the areas you didn't talk a lot about was ground source heat. You talked about heat pumps and new technology. That's great. It's really moved a long way in the last 10 years even. I was an early adopter in 1989, put my first ground source system in my old farmhouse. That was baseboard electric. Your story about that is very relevant to my first bill in the winter of 87. But we have unique opportunities, I think, down the road too, not only for, and ground source is relative to the property size and whether you can go vertical or horizontal, all those factors. So it hasn't been adopted as much, but I think it's by far the most energy efficient of all of them, really. And it's underground. The weather doesn't affect it, those sorts of things either. So we have opportunities with new subdivisions and those sort of things to consider ground source on a larger scale that would maybe connect to multiple homes, because neither of those residential small lots would be able to put a system in that type of thing. But the challenge always is who takes care of the bigger system, that sort of thing. Are those types of things being considered at a higher level as far as helping municipalities work through the ability to offer developers to use that type of system for heating and cooling homes?
Yes, for the existing buildings, certainly there would be how a homeowner decides to advance their heating options, whether it be an air source heat pump, just because of the upfront kind of capital cost, or they want to try and kind of advance that, or a geo exchange system that would be really advantageous in terms of operational costs. Because one of the things that people are afraid of with air source heat pumps, what it means when temperatures go below -20 degrees. How much does that rely on just the electric backup that is being used at that point in time? And what's the financial liability associated with the operational cost if we really do have a really cold winter and the home is reliant only on electrical for heating? So that's one concern they have. Geo exchange doesn't suffer from that kind of risk associated with the air source heat pump not having a 400% productivity or efficiency. It's the geo exchange system will always be at its highest efficiency. So it has a lot of operational savings, even though, as you mentioned, it's much more complicated at the beginning in terms of installing the geo exchange system, whether it be a vertical borehole or horizontal borehole digging that is required. But it is absolutely one of the eligible measures in all of these programs for homeowners that have a lot of space, that are willing to kind of use the geo exchange system as their option. That would be totally eligible under the program rules. And as far as developers at new build sectors, there's a lot of work taking place. For example, there's some developments taking place where geo exchange has been done on a district system, like in Markham. There's a district system that Enwave and the city of Markham have been working together on with Mattamy. In addition, I've certainly heard a lot more a lot more developers, and it's still new. Keep in mind, it's still new, but now there's a lot more work going into putting vertical boreholes in new developments to go fully electric in new developments using a geo exchange system. One of the things that they're looking at, for the most part, I see a lot more developers looking at that at the building level rather than at the district system, especially in low-rise kind of conditions where there's a lot of infrastructure required for a few homes. The individual boreholes at the building level seem to be more cost effective than a district system in that low-rise kind of archetype.
So just to be clear, though, this particular program is dealing with existing.
Yes.
And I can tell you, I was in a home that was not baseboard heated, but forced air electric. And the cost of that was ridiculous every month. I was so happy to get away from it. So I don't know if this particular program could help people that have that type of heating, but I do appreciate that we are going down this road right now for our existing. So unless there's any other questions, I'm looking for a recommendation that has come from Paris, that the report of the sustainability coordinator regarding the home energy loan feasibility study update and presentation from the Clean Air Partnership be received for information, and that a home retrofit program be considered as part of the 2025 capital budget. Looking for someone to move that. Deputy Mayor Black, you have a question? Absolutely. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. Thank you very much for the presentation. And by all means, I'm in support of this. As a rural person, though, I don't worry about my heat bump when it's -20 because I put another piece of wood in the fire. And I noticed that throughout Selwyn Township, the heating sources in the homes, a lot of us actually have wood, and it wasn't listed anywhere in the report. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, thank you for that question. There is a reason for that. One, we put it as on the back burner, largely because we consider it kind of carbon neutral in terms of wood burning. So it kind of doesn't necessarily have cost implications in terms of high costs like oil or propane would, nor does it have a GHG implications in the way natural gas would. So that's one of the reasons why. And I'll be honest on the second reason why we didn't include wood is because it's extremely difficult to get that data in terms of understanding who is purchasing wood. Just because of the decentralized way people purchase wood, it's not like you can get it all from the electrical utility or from the fossil fuel utility. Even with propane and oil, we kind of assume that if there is they're not using oil and propane, that they are using a wood as their main heat. So there it is in a kind of element of the numbers, but because we didn't have data that we could really dig into in one place that we can aggregate to better understand who and where within the community, either in the FSA level to postal, using postal codes to understand that, we had to do kind of by the process of elimination. If we don't see them on the electrical and we see low electricals and we see low fossil fuel use, we have to assume that they're using wood.
Follow up?
Thank you. And follow up. Thanks for that answer, Gabby. Just to clarify, did you say that wood burning is seen as greenhouse neutral?
Yeah, it's considered kind of carbon neutral because when it is like this, the tree will have sequestered the carbon, and then when you burn it, you're releasing that carbon. So you're kind of like you're releasing the carbon that tree has stored over that time, but it's kind of considered carbon neutral. There would be some GHGs attached to it for delivery, but we're kind of ignoring that at this point in time.
Thank you, Gabby. I appreciate you clarifying that for me because sometimes wood burners are criticized or judged, I think, a little bit unfairly. So that was very nice to hear, actually, a little refreshing. Thank you.
No
All right,
problem.
we have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Yes.
Yeah, if I could, just before, and I'm absolutely willing to second this motion, but I'm wondering if we want to, or if it is even appropriate to change this slightly to deal with what Deputy Mayor Black asked about and what Gabby was talking about, because in the next number of years, we're going to see a lot of development in Selwyn, Lakefield South, and elsewhere. We're going to see a lot of development. So is it possible, or am I dreaming that this is thinking too big, that this program could be considered as part of the 2025 capital budget, but not only for retrofit of existing homes, but for new builds, that there could be support given to not necessarily just people who are building a new house on a new lot, but our developers who are building 900 houses on a huge lot? Or should we stick just to this for the retrofit program for existing homes? What are people's thoughts?
I would go to for an answer on that.
I don't believe that the FCM funding would fund that type of program. I think it's intended for retrofitting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
That's
very
correct,
good.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
So
And-
are you willing to second?
yeah,
this?
with that clarification, and thank you. With that, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you very much.
patient. All right, we will now move on to question period. Is there any question from any member of the public?
This is good, amazingly good news. I'm very happy that you have approved this motion, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys look forward with it. I'd love it to do it. John, got something along the lines of John with that, like 900. I don't know where that number came from. New houses.
Okay,
But
so
thank you
that-
very much. I would love to talk about this with any of you who want to talk about that. Gabby's a wonderful person, wonderful person.
Thank you very much. So we will now move on to consent items. Is there anything that anyone wants pulled? Seeing none, I will look to the someone to move the consent items. Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Coolest. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Any other new and unfinished business? Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. It's just a more of a comment about timing and process. Over the past week, we've gotten phone calls with regards to the Ward Street pick. and information that's been shared at the county. And I understand this is a county process. It's not a township process, but understanding the PIC was scheduled, council has got the hour before to get information about it. Assuming that's when information is shared publicly, but the county decided to go out to the local businesses to talk to them about what's in the plan prior to council seeing anything. So we're kind of caught off guard a little bit with that process. And I don't think that's a bad process. I think that's I think it's good that the county is talking to the business owners and property owners along there before even the public meeting to get some feedback and kind of answer, more detailed questions about their particular property. It's difficult to do that in a bigger environment. I'm just wondering if there's a better way that council can be informed, if it's going to go out before the PIC, if we can be informed about what's in the plan. So when we get that phone call and, we arrive at the business or the property owner's location, they've actually got a map of what's happening and we haven't seen it yet. We have no idea what the issues are and why the county has proposed a certain piece of work in front of their business or home. We're kind of caught off guard. It's not a good look for members of council to not know when it's already being shared publicly and we haven't seen it. So, and again, I know this is a county process and maybe the township didn't know that piece was happening, that where they were going to be visiting prior to the public, the PIC. I'm just wondering if there's a better way of doing that. So we are a little better informed when we get that phone call, we have an idea what the plan is, and maybe you can help address some of those questions.
Perhaps the question to ask is, were you aware that the businesses had been given information prior to the PIC?
Again, it is a county process, so I
Yes,
think it is a good
recognizing
question
that
to
100%.
ask the county. In terms of the PIC materials, none of that has been made public. That will be part of the meeting next week. So they did visit a few business owners to talk to them about a couple of suggestions that would be coming forward as that would be in the display panels. I don't think they wanted the businesses to be surprised by that. So that was the purpose of having the one-on-one meetings and meet on site about that. So no materials have been provided to like anybody.
Not true.
Actually,
That's not
they
true.
have,
They have.
I've been witness to it and it was news to me as well. When I was shown it, I
They have
had to
they're
comment.
printouts.
I
Yeah,
had to
no.
comment that, it was the first I'd seen it. So it's not, it really is something, Deputy Mayor Black, that I think should be taken up with the county because they're the ones who supplied it. It's not up to the township to override what the county's doing. So perhaps you can take it up with them.
And I will take it up
And-
with county as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So we now have bylaws, Madam Clerk. Oh, there's something else from the other business. Sorry, Councillor Coulis.
Thank you, through you. I'm just looking for an update on the Ennismore Community Improvement Project. So if we have any updates on regards to where we are at the process, tenders underway, or maybe even construction dates? I don't know who I'm talking to.
Sure, I wasn't sure if Adam wanted to answer it or. Okay, go ahead. All right. Yeah, so the tender has been issued. It closes next week on October the 16th. So providing we get good results, we're hoping to have a recommendation to council at the October 22nd council meeting. When we do ask for submissions, we ask the proponents to provide a schedule. We do outline what our expectations are for a schedule in the tender. So we'll have a better sense of what the proposals are when they think they can get the project done by. We are looking for a spring project, and we are aware that next year is the 200th anniversary of the Peter Robinson settlement, and that the Ennismore does want to have events. So we're mindful of that. I'm not sure that we aren't going to have some piles of dirt around if there's an event though, but.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. And we will now look at the bylaws.
Sorry. We just have one bylaw. It's the 2024-54 for the records retention bylaw.
Right, can I have someone to move that, please? Counselor Boyko, Counselor Kula seconding, all in favor. It's carried, thank you. And confirming bylaw, Deputy Mayor Black, Counselor Koulis, all in favor. That is carried. And adjournment, Counselor Henry and Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you very much and have a great afternoon.